Everybody, Jake and Gino here. And last week we got into banking. This week we are going to tackle the gorilla in the room. The big one, the big, scary Harry. And I'm not talking about the G-Dad over there. Gino, how you doing today?
I'm doing good. I am not as scary as the topic we're going to be discussing today. It's all about inflation. Now,
Ooh.
a little bit of inflation is good. A lot of inflation, not too good. We don't want wheelbarrows full of cash to go buy something, right, Jake? Real simple. Inflation is an increase in the money supply. That's what they've been doing the last 20, 30, 40 years. They keep increasing the money supply. If you can control the money supply, it's good. You want a little bit of inflation. But what happens when there's a lot of inflation? That causes an increase in prices. I mean, I remember runaway inflation back in South America 30, 40 years ago, where they'd have daily inflation rates of 10, 20, 30%, where you'd be paying, let's say, $1 for a slice of pizza in the afternoon. In the evening, you'd be paying $1.50 because the currency was so worthless. That's what the problem is with inflation. If you have rampant or runaway inflation, your currency gets devalued. There's less stability in the marketplace. You don't know what to be paying for certain items. All of a sudden, something may be worth here, and then something, price goes up and it's worth something here. You don't know where to go. I'll give you a quick example, Jake. I was back in Poland back in 1993, and I'm driving around with my cousin. We're touring. My cousin in Italy is getting married in Poland. We stop at a gas station. At the time, they were using zlots. That was their currency. And we didn't know. I remember it was like 20,000 zlots per American dollar. We go to the gas station. We put in gas. We give the person money. We get change back. He gives me change back with gum because there wasn't enough currency. There wasn't enough money. He gave me back. I'd never seen it before. He's like, here's some change and here's a pack of gum. And I was dumbfounded. I'm like, wow, no wonder why this country is so unstable.
Was it your brand?
It was Golia. It was like the Italian crap. I didn't want this. I'm like, what do I want this stuff for? But it was really amazing to me to think back then that a country was that unstable. They had just gotten out of the Cold War. Remember, the wall had just come down a couple of years earlier. They were still trying to figure things out. But if you don't have a stable currency and your currency is getting devalued as much as it was back then for them, there's no stability. Companies can't plan. That's the problem with inflation. One of the many problems of rampant inflation.
I recently read When Money Dies, and it talked about the Weimar Republic in Germany. And essentially, they just kept printing, and they thought they were going to get their way out of it. And it's very interesting because artifacts became super valuable, and barter became sort of the way. And it just it changed the entire economy. There's like essentially this gray market. And a lot of people got hurt. I think it's something they got to be very careful with, because my fear is that if you listen to the Fed right now, they're saying that they're going to wait until they see the white of inflation's eyes before they make a pivot, and they're being pretty aggressive with it. And my fear is that they're playing with something that's dangerous. They're playing with fire right now, and if it gets away from them, we're all going to be impacted by it, and probably pretty negatively. Consumer price index is getting to points that we saw in 2008 and the dot-com bubble. So there's definitely some things to be cautious with. I definitely am a little leery of the stock market right now for sure. And that's why we like multifamily, right, Gino? We like something that we're able to keep up with inflation. It's a fixed asset. It's a true asset. We get fixed rate finance with it. Excuse me. But to your point, I mean, we were doing a little bit of research before this show. In 1960, coffee was 10 cents. We Googled Dunkin' Donuts right now. We're the blue collar crew over here. All right. Large cup of coffee at D&D right now is $2.09. So it's a very real thing. And this scared the shit out of me. I was in Home Depot the other day, and we were putting my wife got a new bed or whatever, and we wanted to get rid of the box springs and put it down. So I was getting plywood. Subfloor in Home Depot, like the nice stuff, was like $50 a sheet right now. It's $10 a couple of years ago. Okay. I know there's other factors at hand there, but we're seeing it, we're feeling it. And to your point, you're saying earlier that the consumer price index excludes, what are you saying? Food
and energy. And those are the two things that people actually really consume.
It's really what matters, right?
I remember back in 15 years ago, I was buying a dozen organic eggs for $1.99. Go out and buy a dozen organic eggs for less than $4 now. It's like since 1970, over 90% of the purchasing power of the US dollar has been lost. And why are we talking about inflation? Oh, and by the way, click on a link down below. Like the Jake and Gino channel, subscribe to the channel. But why are we talking about inflation? We want you to win with inflation. Who wins with inflation? People who have hard assets, people who have multifamily, people who have real estate. Our baby boomer parents back in the 70s, they bought houses for $22,000. They didn't do anything other than hold on to them. Now those houses are worth $500,000 and $600,000 just from inflation, just from that property inflating. So it's very important. This is why we're talking about inflation. The other caveat that Jake had said, if the Fed sees inflation down the road, what's going to happen? What is their silver bullet? They need to raise interest rates. Well, it's really hard when you have a $30 trillion deficit. What's that going to do to the economy if we have to raise interest rates and all of a sudden we have to pay on that debt? That's the silver lining right now. We don't know what's going to happen. Back in 2008, we had a deflationary economy where, asset prices were dropping, right? Right now, it seems as if for the next couple of years, they keep talking about inflation. There's hidden inflation, right? Gas before Biden took over was about $2, $2.05 a gallon down here in Florida. Now it's approaching almost $3. That is very, very hard for the middle income of America. That is a really big hit. Food is going up as well. Lumber prices are going up as well. Materials are going up as well. This is something that will slow down the economy if we don't get a hold of it.
Yeah. And so Gino said earlier, it's an increase in the money supply. Well, we've been printing money for the last 20 years and we're getting addicted to it. And that's the scary thing. At some point that could come back to bite us. The real estate take on this is basically if you can get locked in at a 3.5% interest rate right now, and you lock that in for 10 or 15 years, and it's to Gino's point, they do have to raise rates, and rates are at 4, 5, 6% in the future. You have an asset there, not only your apartment building, but also that mortgage is assumable, and that becomes an asset. So I think that's very key. Don't downplay how important getting in long-term good fixed rate debt is right now. Everyone talks about the Freddie floater like it's this great thing. You know what I like? I like that fixed rate, back of the leg, back of the wheelbarrow, fixed rate 10 to 15 year debt that we can get at a 3% rate that becomes a true asset.
Let me end with this, everybody. Wrap your mind around this. Debtors are winners in this economy. Savers are losers. You're making 0.5% on your money. When inflation is 3%, you're losing, and then you have taxes to pay on top of that. If you can borrow money today wisely, and 5 years from now, you're paying back that loan 5 years from now, you're paying it back with cheaper dollars. So your debt, like a lot of these experts are saying, seems as if it's going to become an asset because you're paying back the loan with cheaper dollars in the future. So that's why if you can figure out what your personal balance sheet looks like and what your business balance sheet looks like, start borrowing money on your business balance sheet, let the cash flow go into your pocket, and then you start paying back that loan in the future. And that's why government likes this, because they're printing so much money. They know that debt is going to be cheaper in the future for them to pay back with those cheaper dollars.
Last point on this, nirvana happens when you're getting locked in those low threes, you're buying something, and that asset you're buying is actually cash flowing. Like, don't discount that cash flow piece. If you're buying an asset, a multifamily residence, say, and that sucker is cash flowing and you're locked in at that 3%, that is the sweet spot right there with long-term debt. Gino, I appreciate it today.
Mr. Stenziano, see you next week. We're going to be talking about the 3 types of income. Take care, everyone.